USC is going to Utah. 3.5-point dogs going to Salt Lake City. This game is going on at 8 Eastern. And there is no shortage of implications for the Trojans. Pac-12, yes. College football playoff, potentially even more so. We said it in the beginning of this show. We've had this game circled as a fork in the road for USC season for a long, long time. Make no mistake about it. This is a prove-it game for them. They've won tough a couple of times. They've played good against the competition that they've had scheduled, quite frankly. This is the game where they can validate a lot of what they believe about themselves in that locker room. For USC, this is the final boss in the Pac-12. You want to be the big dog on the block? Want to be the big dog on the West Coast? You got to be the defending champion. And Utah took an L last week, took an L in week 1 to Florida, took an L last week to UCLA. I don't think that there's any flinching on that sideline at all. Kyle Whittingham has got a program. Good team, yes, but a program that is built to last. Has a quarterback in Cam Rising who is following suit in terms of not being phased. They're going to give USC all they can handle and then some. USC is, I think, in a little bit of a dangerous spot with Utah having lost last week, because for Utah, UCLA just kind of gave you a little slap, right? I mean, it wasn't fatal. Didn't put you down. You lost the game. In terms of the course of your season, they just gave you an open-handed slap. So now what happens is you sort of shake your head a little bit, kind of get your wits about you, and the fight or flight starts to kick in. That's what I think we could see with Utah. What this game comes down to for us, we said it at the beginning of the season. The same question I think needs to be answered against this kind of competition. Can USC be tough enough? Straight up, can they be tough enough? Not can they be the tougher team, not can they be physically dominant, but can they be tough enough? The defensive line giving up around 152 yards rushing, so the trenches is a little bit of a cause for concern. It's not egregious, but it's not necessarily a winning formula in this game either. Because if they can't stop the run, if they have an outing like they did against Stanford, where Stanford really drove into their territory multiple times but couldn't finish and turn the ball over, if they want to allow them to drive like they did and run the football like they did, then Utah's just going to kind of dictate their tempo. Say, Caleb Williams, you got to watch this game, my guy. That's great, all about the Heisman Trophy and how highly you'll go in the NFL draft when it's your time, but you're going to have to take a seat for the majority of this game because we're going to hold it for like 35 minutes, 40 minutes. And that's just going to be the way that we get down. You're in Salt Lake now. That's what Utah wants to do. However, if USC can get some stops, they've been very turnover efficient on that side of the ball, had a propensity to take the ball away. If they can get some stops, or even better yet, some turnovers, well, guess what that does? It allows the offense to have an impact on the game. It sounds simplistic. This is what it comes down to. Football is a simple game. The more possessions USC gets, the more bullets they get in the chamber, the more chances they have to put the pressure on Utah. You saw that from UCLA last week. They were able to get some stops, were able to put up somewhere around 40 points in that game, I believe. They just sort of chipped away at Utah. But the fact that Utah wasn't controlling that game is why UCLA was able to be successful. Second thing we're looking at when it comes to the hinge points within this game, what kind of fight does this become? Because Utah would like to make this a wrestling match. Close quarters, kind of physical, grunted out kind of game. Got you in a chokehold, got you on the ground, and then sort of grappling for the majority of the game. USC wants this to be an MMA fight. Throwing punches, being quick and fast within the field of play, being able to play in space. And I say that because if you look at the tape a week ago from UCLA, Chip Kelly, the mad scientist that he is when it comes to offensive football, they just read them to death in that zone read. They lined up in like a full house kind of formation multiple times. What I'm saying is they forced Utah at many times to play in space. That's not the kind of game Utah likes to play. That's not the game they were able to play last week against UCLA because UCLA made them just look foolish in space. Charbonnet had an absolute day, the UCLA running back. That's the same kind of game USC wants to play because it's no secret how much talent they have on offense. They're going to do a lot of read option game as well. DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, quarterback for UCLA, he's a dude. He's a really good athlete. Caleb Williams is a whole other beast when he pulls the ball. So for Utah, what happens to the edge of your defense, your overhang players, your defensive ends, your outside linebackers? Are you able to keep the game within the hashes? Are you able to sort of force the ball back inside to your big, strong guys? That's what you want to do. If you can't do it, you're going to have to deal with the same problems you had a week ago. Jordan Addison getting jiggy with it on the screens. Caleb Williams out on the edge. You got to try and tackle him. Travis Dye, he's a fiend. Mario Williams, like we could keep going here with all the dudes that USC has, but that's the kind of formula that I think will determine which kind of game Utah's able to play. The read option kind of game, the screens, everything in space. Space favors USC. MMA fight favors USC. Utah, I promise you, will try to make this a wrestling match. Alluding to what we had already said earlier in this preview, who gets more possessions? Like, it sounds funny to say out loud, but genuinely, who gets to have the football more? Both these programs taking the ball away right around 2.5 times a game. Gives you more ammunition for the offense. If USC is able to have as many or more possessions than Utah, that favors them. I think they win this game. Going to get to our prediction here in a second, but that's going to be a crucial ingredient. Because Utah wants to make Caleb Williams, like I already said, they want him watching this game. They don't want him on the field. They don't want him playing. They want him watching. And the more possessions he gets, the more chances they get to get into a rhythm, the more chances they get to get your defense off balance, show you different looks. That's not the kind of game that Utah wants to play. They want to make this as boring a game as possible. Sounds funny to say out loud, but I promise you that's the truth. USC scoring 40 a game. Number's a little bit skewed based on the competition, but that's a very real number. Okay, so for Utah, limit possessions, hold on to the ball, play tough, play physical. That's the kind of formula. Our prediction for this game. I watched Chip Kelly's team last week in the Rose Bowl just really go up and down the field with Utah. Something I didn't expect to see. And that was the second time now that I've seen a team with really good offensive team speed give Utah fits. Maybe this is the game where they figure it out, but from what I saw on tape a week ago, I don't think those are 1 week fixes. If they are, great for Kyle Whittingham and his staff. Great for Utah. However, I don't trust that defense enough against this USC offense that's scoring 40. During the preseason, in our rapid pick segments that we did, we said that USC would lose at Utah. We're changing our tune. This team has come together in a really quick amount of time, been really impressed with the offensive efficiency. The defense has been solid enough. I think this is a big game where they get tested, but they're good for the call to action. I think USC wins this game very, very close. Comes down to a field goal, but the Trojans get a prove-it kind of win, 33-30 in Salt Lake City. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.